Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for joining us on this edition of the Cooperative Voice. I am your host, Phoenix Belfield. It's an incredible day this morning, and we have a very fantastic guest who is going to be sharing with us a little bit on BAICO on trial. But before we get into that, we want to give a shout out to our first responders. We want to give a shout out to those persons who are keeping us protected, keeping us healthy, fighting the COVID fight. We want to also give a shout out to the persons who are supporting this program, supporting the credit union movement, and giving us all of their support. Again, this edition of the Cooperative Voice is brought to you with a kind compliments of the Dominica Cooperative Societies League Limited in collaboration with the Credit Unions of Dominica and M-Laja Mobile Wallet, Dominica's first mobile wallet providing great financial services. In today's edition of the Cooperative Voice, we will be speaking on BAICO on trial. What is happening with BAICO, the British American insurance company, the one that failed and left a lot of stranded policyholders? What's happening and what is being done to help those stranded policyholders to recover some of their hard-earned earnings and investments? So today we'll be speaking with the president of BACOL, Dr. Patrick Antoine. We'll be having a conversation with him on BACOL. What is BACOL doing to help in the fight for BAICO? And we're going to get some intricate updates and understanding as to the BAICO, the failed BAICO insurance company, and what we can do to join in support of that movement. So stay tuned. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back after this short advertisement.
Send me money. Receive money. Send me money. No more hassle. M-L'argent. Send me money. Send me money. Receive money. Receive money. M-L'argent. It's safe and secure. M-L'argent. You want to send your money to friends and family. No more standing in line. M-L'argent. It's a new digital financial service brought to you by the Dominica Credit Union Movement. Introduces a new wallet solution, M-L'argent. Top up friends, pay bills, make shopping easy, extra secure. Sign up is absolutely free. M-L'argent. You want to send your money to friends and family. No more standing in line. M-L'argent. Download the M-L'argent app today. See your credit union for more details. M-L'argent, your mobile payment solution. M-L'argent.
Thank you again, and welcome again to the Cooperative Voice. This is your host, Phoenix Belfield. Like I said earlier, in today's conversation, we'll be having a conversation about BAICO. We call it BAICO on trial. We want to know what's happening with the British American insurance company and why did it fail, and what we can do to help galvanize the support for the stranded policyholders to recover some of their hard-earned investments. So to help me dilute this plethora of madness, I will call on the support of Dr. Patrick Antoine. Dr. Patrick Antoine, he's a Caribbean man, and I think you'll be happy with that definition. He's a Caribbean man at heart. He has been the Grenada ambassador to the OECS. He has held many important positions fighting on behalf of the jurisdictions within the OECS, and now he's at the helm of BACOL. And he's going to be helping us in the fight to recover some of the investments. Dr. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to your executive, your governing body, your members of the credit union, to the wonderful people of Dominica, and let me single out the beautiful people of Soufriere and Scott said. We have spent a lot of time. I proudly associate with Dominica on account of my two beautiful children.
Oh, okay. Yes, I think you're more Dominican than you're Grenadian.
Yes. Well, the best of me came out of Dominica, and I just want to thank God for giving us their mother, Diane Francis, who has really done a wonderful job in raising them, and of course the people of Soufriere and Scott said that's special to me. We went through our struggles just after the hurricane, and you and your own members in terms of how you've reached out, and of course your relationship with us in Grenada, when in the dark, deep days of this crisis, we formed a common cause in taking on the judicial managers and ultimately in becoming friends with them. I think, of course, those are things that history will remember us for fondly.
Yes, sorry about that. We're back on. I think we lost momentarily the connection. Are you still with us?
Yes, yes. No, we're with you. We're here with you. We're going nowhere.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Antoine. And we want to get right into it about the BACOL, the BAICO initiative. And I've been trying to parse through the volume of documents relating to BAICO. In fact, one of the judicial managers on behalf of the policyholders, when they made a plea to the court, they described the arrangement as a whole web. And I'm trying to understand in discussing this whole web, which we see now, about how the companies have shaped. You have BAICO Bahamas, you have Trinidad, and you have BAICO. Now, this is what I tried to make sense of what was presented. There's a connection between BAICO Trinidad, because this now would give us an idea as to how, why is it that we're going to court with the government of Trinidad? Help me understand this madness.
Well, I mean, I think as your chart shows, there was a plethora, whole just, well, is a good word, of inter-party connections between the companies, and that's the first thing, inter-party. It was not held by the fact that you had many of the boards sharing directors, so that's what we call, you have a sort of inter-party, board of directors, or interlocking, if you wish. Right. And that too was shared by the fact that, in addition to that, you have these parties which shared board of directors, where they were related to each other in a direct sense in terms of reporting responsibilities. You also had them doing a substantial amount of business amongst themselves, so that when there was a problem, as emerged in 2008 and 9, with one company or a few companies, it tended to, if you wish, infect is a good word, but the word we use in economics is it tended to be contagion, where the problems essentially replicated throughout this web. These companies, as you put it on the chart, perhaps rapidly, and to a larger extent, the problems would have emerged from one company transferred to the other and to the other companies in the group, and if the transactions were done with myriad or different people outside the group. And really that's been the big issue that led to the crisis. But the most important thing for us is that this has emerged because of the failure of the regulators and regulations to properly regulate the dealings of the company. And so for us, this is a monumental failure of regulations where we believed, and we had good reason for believing so as policyholders, that the regulatory framework existed to protect us, as is demanded and is required by the Treaty of Chaguaramas. But these regulations were in fact not in place. And we find very often that the regulations lag the commitments of states, so that persons on the outside like us tend to follow what the promise is, in fact, in treaty, as we did, only to find that the underbelly of that is a lack of the regulatory framework to support the transactions that would have emerged.
Right. So now, okay. So underpinning that regulatory oversight and framework that was not as strong as should have. Now we've gone a number of years now with this impasse. We've seen it in the BAICO. We've also seen it in the CLICO side of things. Now we are putting together a movement. Well, BACOL has been in existence for a number of years. I think six to 7 years you've been around from Grenada time?
Six years, just about. We were registered as a not-for-profit organization in Grenada in 2015. I want to say October 2015.
Right.
And we've been in existence since.
Right. And so what we're looking at now is a class action lawsuit that is going to galvanize the support from persons not only in Grenada, but we're looking to galvanize the support from persons from within the other jurisdiction to come together and to fight this case. The question I have is, why the government of Trinidad and Tobago?
The government of Trinidad and Tobago, because we have credible evidence that the organizations were managed and administered from Trinidad and Tobago. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, because the government of Trinidad and Tobago would have intervened to protect only the policyholders in Trinidad and Tobago, and we have credible evidence of that as well. They don't hide that fact that they've intervened to protect what they call their citizens. The treaty talks about CARICOM nationals, by the way. It doesn't talk about citizens. So already you start seeing the direction in which we're traveling. And the government of Trinidad and Tobago continues to have, if you wish, paternity for the assets which we have argued were built up with injections from the OECS and Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere. But they've continued to have a paternity for this in circumstances where we believe we have a just cause and a just right to benefit from these assets that we contribute to building up. And of course, finally, the government of Trinidad and Tobago used these assets only to
protect the interests of Trinidadian policyholders.
Trinidad and Tobago policyholders. And what I mean is that they got their monies back since 2010. And we are still without any benefit at all from the settlement of these assets from the injections that were built up from us.
So, okay, so now, once you take over a company, essentially, and which is what the records are showing that happened, that they took over this company, so effectively, you're taking over the assets and the liabilities of those companies and distributing it across the policyholders, except that only the policyholders of Trinidad and Tobago benefited from it. And the question for us now is that, was this a sort of ring fencing as we saw in what happened in the other jurisdiction? Would you consider it as that?
Well, what has happened is that they have ring fenced the assets, and we have the evidence that they've used the assets essentially as collateral for a loan. And the loan was used against the assets to settle what the documents indicate are Trinidad and Tobago citizens. And the word citizens should jump out at all of us.
Right.
Because the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas talks about all of us being equal, and it talks about CARICOM nationals. But when you read the MOU, when you read the statement from the Ministers of Finance of the day, what you see is a very clear policy of protecting Trinidad and Tobago citizens. And to the extent then that there's a clear line between the assets and the OECS, and we think there is, and there's a clear line between how the assets were used and Trinidad and Tobago citizens only, we've argued that this is what we call discrimination, that you treated people in the same position differently. We've argued that this is the classic case of discrimination in international trade law when it comes to cross-border transactions.
So what is the legal approach? What is BACOL's position as it relates to, because people are going to ask the question, okay, we are going about this thing probably about eight years or so afterwards. What is BACOL's position, and why is it that you are so bullish about the prospects of the court litigation?
Yeah, well, let me say that one of the first things is that we never lost the cause of pursuing our own rights within this matter. We have been writing since 2015, and many of us individually would have written before that. So since 2015, we have a just mountain of communication between ourselves and various authorities, including the authorities in Trinidad and Tobago, so that we never lost. If you wish, using my son's description, there was never a cold case. And secondly, we believe that we have this just cause because the assets are there, but that really doesn't matter, as I say to a number of policyholders. What matters is that Trinidad and Tobago, as a state, right, in international trade law, as a state, once you can prove a number of conditions have existed, which have caused, for instance, this matter to be delayed, and we have met those conditions, we believe, by every single test. One, the cost was prohibitive, which is why we're depending on all of the OECS citizens and policyholders to help us. Two, we could not get the evidence, and that you can well imagine the evidence really was not easily accessible. It was not in our own control, and we've had to all sorts of things to get the evidence. And three, that we have never lost any interest in the matter by pursuing it diligently through the various items of communication that I've mentioned. So we believe that in all three instances, we qualify to take this matter to be heard by the Caribbean Court of Justice in its original jurisdiction, because it is an international court. And we too believe that our cause is further strengthened by the fact that we believe that the state-to-state promise that we read from the governor of the central bank back in 2010 and 2011, that this was a regional problem requiring a regional solution.
Regional approach.
When you can't trust, states to settle problems, the court has given us another route, which is Article 222. But we believe that the states would settle. That process worked itself out finally when in 2017 it became clear to us that there was in fact no hope that the states would settle. And then, of course, we had to go into full gear in terms of trying to drive this ourselves. So we believe that in all instances we've qualified. We believe that our cause is just to know that we have the evidence thanks to the data and information sharing arrangements we've been able to enter. I shall say no more on that. We don't have the data and the evidence that indicates that we do have a case to be heard. And we view this as a matter that the court, we are fairly sure in the context of the treaty, will view the same way.
We've heard some comments by one of the legal representatives. I think it was the Honorable Anthony. I think is the former Prime Minister of I think it was St. Lucia, the senior counsel. And they were talking about the involvement of the government, at a government-to-government level with OECS governments and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And why is it that he feels a little bit more enlightened and empowered? The fact that you avoid that situation of diplomacy, of politics at a higher level, and the states empowering, because we've seen other governments coming out on behalf of their citizens and encouraging the entities like BACOL to pursue this matter from BACOL's vantage point. How important is that?
I think that's just incredibly important. And let me say that we're very lucky to have ex-Prime Minister Kenny Anthony on our team, Dr. Kenny Anthony, of course, because I think he would have had, in a previous dispensation, he would have known, and I don't think this matter ever got to any litigation stage. It was simply at the stage of state-to-state discussions at the level of heads of government. But he would obviously have known about the problem. And I think for us, this is important because what I think Dr. Anthony's points amount to is this. We are before the CCJ because we have nowhere else to go.
Right.
We have no other option. We didn't go there first, we went there last. It's the court of last resort. And truly, if there is a case that is befitting to be heard by the court, it is this. The treaty, all of the conditions that exist, where you have individuals and private parties that don't have, if you wish, they're not the custodians of the information. The fact that ordinarily, if we didn't take an OECS approach, we could not get to the court because the cost of doing this has been prohibitive. And I think if there isn't a just cause then the treaty, to all perspective, means absolutely nothing, because the court was established to give ordinary people access to justice in conditions where the court knew that the cost was an issue, where the access to information was an issue. So we believe that this case is a test case, yes, not just of BAICO on trial, but this is a test case of the CCJ and its jurisdiction as a court where ordinary people that have nowhere else to go can come. And I get passionate about this because that was the promise of CARICOM. The promise of CARICOM is, look, we will have one framework for one set of people without regard to citizenship in Dominica or Grenada or Trinidad and Tobago, that will be treated the same way in what we call a rules-based framework. This is a test of our Caribbeanness.
And you put it so succinctly, because I mean, you've been around, you've served on the OECS Commission, you've been around in trade negotiations for a number of years. How do you see this having? It is more. It's as I said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So it's really a test of the CARICOM framework. It's a test of the OECS union. How do you see this thing coming together in the context of this fight to protect the average person, the ordinary man?
I believe that this matter, once the court hears this matter, which is going to be fairly shortly in the first instance, where we have the case management, taking place, that this matter must come together where there is a recognition by the court that what is at stake is nothing more, right, than the belief that the rest of the Caribbean will have in the treaty. So I think that is really what's at stake. And coming together, to my mind, will take place when the court recognizes that an injustice was done. Right. The coming together that you speak of, and I'm happy you give me the latitude, is where we now have the promise meeting the reality. The promise of this one Caribbean with all of these rules that we've spent a lot of money on. And as citizens and private citizens, we have for a long time yearned for, even before the revised Treaty of Chagarams, which is why we moved from the old treaty to the new treaty, which has rights which are justiciable, which we can take before the court. That to my mind, is really where we have this coming together of this aspiration long held, right, by ordinary people, with the reality on the ground that you can in fact get justice by taking this to a place which is accessible to you under the conditions that the treaty and, of course, the rules of the court would have prescribed.
So you speak to aspirations and coming together with the reality. BACOL's fight is to now approach the CCJ. How is it that you would want the citizens, because we've heard some coming together, they've been registering with the local case managers, they've been quite a bit of support here in Dominica as well as a jurisdiction. The credit union movement is also supporting the initiative. I think last time we checked, we had about 1,704 policyholders or something like that, with about $75.4 million between CLICO and BAICO. And these are hard-earned monies of the average Dominican, and then you also have of the other OECS states. You've had instances where the assets of these companies, a lot of them were not even located in these jurisdictions, and particularly so in Dominica. And so now we have to be chasing around. The court has to be chasing around. I've read instances where they have to be filing injunction to prevent the sale of undisclosed assets in order to begin to recoup these investments. It's a very tall order, but I'm happy that BACOL has pressed forward and you continue this fight, and now we're beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, well, it's been a long road. It's been 7 years of chasing information that you were told didn't exist. I mean, we can write a book on the stories behind this, but ultimately, I think there is a God, and it's a God of justice. And I don't say that glibly, because I think the fact is that our battle is not with the people or with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We simply want to get our rights treated in the same way as the rights of Trinidad and Tobago nationals. And I say that because so many Trinidad and Tobago nationals, CARICOM nationals all, have helped us to get access to this information. And I will speak to this later, but we could not have gotten this far if we didn't have good people who just felt that this was wrong. And I think ultimately, a number of the persons, including people in the legal fraternity, who've now en masse, since we've actually reached this far, given us, just words of encouragement and have indicated their willingness to help. All of this is really now a Caribbean movement, to my mind, for justice. Secondly, I think it's important to see that the way that the people can help now is to join this sort of armada for justice before the court. And to do that, you simply must contact, our representatives in Dominica, who I think you have been in contact with yourself.
Yes.
Just absolutely, Heather Felix Evans and Jeffrey
Murdoch.
Absolutely, Murdoch, who works with her, because we want to approach the court as a collective of the OECS civilization, and we put ourselves a target of 75 to 80% of all the policies out there, so that the court understands the magnitude of this for the OECS civilization and the gravity of it for CARICOM. Both two. The magnitude is the amount, and the gravity is that we believe that if this matter is not well determined, that CARICOM will not be the same. How do we then take the promise of protections for investment, for insurance, for financial services once they cross border? That's what's at stake. And it's not a new promise. It's a promise that we need since 1992. So when this thing happened in 2009, it wasn't that we expected that the framework would emerge later. No,
it was already
there. That when we signed on to that framework, that the protections would have been there. And so to our mind, approaching this would also require you to make your contributions, because that's the only how we've been able to get here. And I know there are people listening from the other countries. We've been able to get here because the people of Grenada, the people of Antigua and Barbuda, and some well-wishers, and we have a financial institution that's been helping us now, with the understanding that if there is no success, they lose their money. But the gravity of the injustice is so great that I think we really want everyone to join us so that we can have absolutely no fetter, no impediment to having our legal and our trade and our tax and our other teams, right, respond optimally to this. And they're not paid a salary. All we want to do is to be able to facilitate them, such as when they have to meet collectively, which they've had to do a lot, and we can do it online now. But if the court allows, for instance, the hearing to be held in person, then we want to make sure that our team is also here in person from wherever they come. And they come from St. Lucia, Dr. Anthony. They come from Guyana with a gentleman called George Kernan. They come from the UK. Yes, we have another one who is coming from Anguilla. So we have a number of attorneys that have formed just an incredible team, a to die for team that we could not afford but for the grace of God, that we want to be able to ensure that we facilitate their work, right? So that there is no fetter in running what we call from IT, the last mile, that last important mile on how they actually are able to work together, to collaborate, to plan, and to make sure that we execute properly before the court. We believe that this is going to be a tough fight, but we believe that it's a fight that's well worth it, and it's a fight that we cannot afford not to take up. And this fight is a fight for rights. It's not a fight with the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's not a fight with Trinidad. We're fighting for rights in the treaty. That's where the true fight is.
And it's important. While you mentioned about those, I had to mention that we're live on Q95. So thank you for the listeners on Q95 who are tuned in to live radio broadcasts, and also those who are tuned into Q95's social media page. Thank you for joining us. on this important discussion. We're having with us Dr. Patrick Antoine, and he's the president of BACOL, the regional representative for the policyholders of CLICO and BAICO. And we're having a discussion on the BAICO, the CLICO BAICO situation. How is it that we can help the fight for the rights of the policyholders? Again, this is not a jurisdictional fight. This is not a fight against governments, and this is something that we've been, been saying time and time again. Persons have called us up and asked us, "Hey, well, why don't you take it against the government and take it against the regulator?" And we've often maintained the position that this is not a political fight. This is not a fight with the regulator. This is a fight for the rights of the policyholders. And that is why we've joined in the movement with BACOL to fight and to give them the support they need for not only for Dominica but for the citizens. So we're joined here with Dr. Patrick Antoine, and he's the president of BACOL. Dr. Patrick, we spoke about BACOL. What about CLICO? We've not been hearing much about it. The last we heard of significance was that they had sent out a correspondence and they tell you not to respond. This is just for noting 6, and then just before that, you had an instance where I think the business relations of CLICO were wrapped up. It was closed up, and so now there was a proposal before the court, to either reinvent the business or to pay your percentage without the interest or something. Bring us to speed on what's happening with CLICO.
Okay, so the matter with CLICO has lagged a bit behind the matter with the British American Investment Company, BAICO, on account of the same facts that have caused us to not have been before the court now. That is, of course, access to the evidence. The evidentiary basis in the CLICO matter really takes us to Barbados and takes us to a number of other places that we've not had as much success previously, but we have seen some light at the end of that tunnel more recently. And so our view was, rather than waiting to take both cases before the court together, we wanted to test and to take before the court the principles on which this matter of British American Investment Insurance Company Limited, BAICO, would be resolved, while we work on completing the evidentiary basis for the CLICO matter. And so while the cases are similar and a lot of the legal arguments are similar, they do have some differences, some fundamental differences that we're going to articulate in the submissions of what we call the originating application, which is, of course, the document that we submit to the court up front, so that they can test and examine to see whether, in fact, you meet the test to have the court hear the case. In the originating application, we are going to have to vest and embed in that the evidentiary basis for CLICO, which up to this point, we don't have, let me just say, paternity over all of these facts, but we are getting there. So that those who have CLICO policies, we've said to them, register them still with the, let me just say, notify, just to use a clear word, notify them still with the case managers, with Heather, with Jeffrey, because we plan to have a second raft of submissions before the court in the context of the CLICO matter. So that's what's happening with CLICO, and that's how the two things relate. We plan to leave no one behind. And that is why we have put this special facility in place. And let me just say that it was the cause of Dominica initially, with our discussions with you back in 2018-19, that led us to put a particular facility in place of a 1% for individuals who could not afford the $150, the contribution. That we would, in fact, for individuals who could not afford the contributions of, let's say if you have a policy of $200,000, the contribution to all the administrative costs, etc., would be about $1,200. It's not salaries. Nobody here, nobody on the legal or the trade teams getting any benefit from it. It's just to cover expenses FedExes, all of these things which have been going backward and forward. A lot of these documents have to be submitted, right, in original form, etc., etc. That's what that's for. But the recognition that in Dominica, many people could not afford this $1,200 if your policy was $200,000. If it's less, it's less. We put in consultation with your mechanism in place so that such persons could pay 1% of whatever the court awards, right, and not have to pay this contribution.
Risk-free. Yeah.
Risk-free. And that I want to say, to your credit, to the credit of the movement in Dominica, has now been extended for individuals to all the OECS countries, to individuals.
Wow.
They are, I will say, tongue-in-cheek, one or two exceptions, I shall say no more. Those listening will know what we're talking about, but
they will message.
Yeah?
They will message.
Yes, right. So thanks again for that. And again, this is what we expect in an OECS movement and in a CARICOM movement, where something's born one place and it's actually the innovation takes place somewhere else and the benefit takes place across the board. That's what the integration is about. And I think that's what we're seeing with this movement.
And just to wrap up our quick chat, so now moving forward, once we're wrapping up the registration process, I know your local office is trying to comb through the number of applications that they've received, both for membership, those that are signing up for the financing mechanism. What is the next step for BACOL? You're looking to approach the Caribbean Court of Justice, and I know the Caribbean Court of Justice has been, once it's considered something of a regional importance or national importance, they have an attitude or a disposition to quickly hear these matters that are of national and regional importance. Is that providing some level of support to the BACOL cry? What is the anticipation once the case is called?
Well, you are absolutely correct. And I too, like you, want to endorse the court in the original jurisdiction as a trade court. I think they've done a good job. We haven't agreed with all the judgments, but I think the way in which the court has come to it is deepening our understanding of it. I myself have been involved in a number of other cases as a trade person. Right. And I have to say that I have tremendous faith in the court, and I have faith that the court will rule, in accordance with the facts in this matter. Yes, the court has taken this matter seriously by, let me just say, coming to a very quick date, and we believe that once the matter is heard and the determination of the case meeting all of the rules as the court has set out for access, that the case will in fact be heard quickly. We anticipate that, and we can't be certain, but we don't think that this case will take more than a year to 18 months at the outset, which of course is longer than the case cases that we've heard in the original, in the national or domestic jurisdictions, taking 8 and 10 and 12 years. So we are encouraged by that. And so our expectation is that the matter will not just be heard, but will be determined quickly. And that policyholders that have suffered for so long, so many of them are no longer with us. Those who have died brokenhearted and those who have died in destitution. And this is not lyrics. I keep telling people that, and I'm taking it down so my people in Dominica understand me. There are people who have died because they couldn't afford medical treatment. There are people who have died because they expected their loved ones to be able to live a different kind of life, to fund their grandchildren's education. People have been pulled from school. I said 2 weeks ago on a program in Antigua, I can write a separate book on the hardships of ordinary people that have emerged from this matter. And of course, I say it again because I don't ever want it to be forgotten, that I lost a friend who committed suicide from this matter because he couldn't live with the guilt that he'd lost his funds and his family's funds without the acquiescence or agreement of his wife. And this was too much for him. But it would be remiss of me not to say to the people of Dominica and to you that even as we advance to the court, I sadly miss, even from where I sit, a comrade and brother who walked with me on this journey from the very first day, Ambassador Gerald Thompson. When no one else believed in this matter, we worked for 3 years. just on trying to find the justification, rationale, and some of the evidentiary basis so that the lawyers could take an interest in this case. Unfortunately, Ambassador Thompson left us for a better place on the 7th of June this year. And of course, this is rather unfortunate because that's 3 days after the entire legal trade and other colleagues working on this case signed off on the case. As soon as we had done that, Ambassador Thompson unfortunately decided or was called home. It is God who called him home, was called home to his Heavenly Father. And so he will not be able to see us march this case into court. But he has been just so, indispensable in whatever comes out of this that it would be remiss of me, even though I'm talking to my colleagues in Dominica, not to mention him, and to say that his heart was with the poor. And he was one of the people working with me here while you and your team worked on that side and the facility that we agreed on ultimately. Right. He was the person who felt we needed to give access to people who couldn't afford these contributions because we could leave no one behind. I pay tribute to him today.
Yeah, thanks. And I remember since our first conversations in 2018, back in the salt basket, the spice basket?
Yes. Spice basket, the spice basket.
Lovely basket.
Lovely, yes.
Yes, absolutely. It has been an incredible journey. And again, this is testament to the resolve of the BACOL team and also those who have supported you along the way. I mean, we've come in halfway of the journey, but those who have supported you from inception to conception, from conception to inception, and now to action. And we're happy about the resolve because we're tying our hopes and aspirations and as you say, marrying them to reality in this fight for justice of the policyholders of BAICO.
Thank you for mentioning that. I could not have said it better. My board have really been a source of support. And let me just say that the scripture says that iron sharpens iron. It has not always been smooth, but I think ultimately, by pushing each other, we've ended up at a better place. And really, when we began this journey in 2015, I don't think that many imagined that it would be as it is today. But so it has been, and I have to thank them for the support because this endeavor had to have started somewhere. And it is just to their credit and for the mercy of God that it started in Grenada, and they were there to support it all along the way, including breaking down the initial walls and barriers to anyone believing that we could get this far. And Hugh Dalland is one of the people behind our board in Grenada. He acts as the deputy president, and the rest of the board. They have pushed, and it has not always been easy. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was intended to be. It was intended to be hard. And that is why we've developed this resolve and this fortitude that we must see this to the end. Again, I want to thank them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Antoine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had the presence of Dr. Antoine on the show. This is the Cooperative Voice, and we have been speaking about BACOL on trial. What is in it for the policyholders of BAICO? How can we recoup our investments? What can the policyholders do of the OECS to join in this fight? And Dr. Antoine, thank you very much for bringing this thing within context, within perspective.
Thank you so much for having me, and let us not forget that what we're fighting for is the 86 cents that's still out there on the dollar. We've only gotten 14 cents so far. It's worth fighting for. In short, if we are successful, in addition to the 86 cents that's out there that we will perhaps never get if we're not successful in this matter, say for 2 or 3 cents, we are also going for the interest that would have accrued if we'd gotten our money at the same time as Trinidad and Tobago policyholders. It's worth fighting for. 86 cents plus interest over 11 years, I would say it's worth taking a chance on. And for the individuals still, we have this facility for you of the 1%, but please rush in today. is the last day by the grace of God, and we're here to support you. Thank you so much to the credit union movement for having us. Thank you so much for sustaining your interest in this, kudos.
Well, thank you very much for tolerating me.
You're a brave man to say that on air, but all I will say tongue in cheek is that I salute you, sir.
I learned from the best. So thank you very much, Dr. Antoine. Okay. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
ladies and gentlemen, this has been another edition of the Cooperative Voice. We have been joined with Dr. Patrick Antoine, who is the president of BACOL, and he has been the one supporting the fight. He has been the one pushing through to ensure that we can get some fight to the BAICO situation. This edition has been speaking on BAICO on trial, and we're happy that we've benefited from the contribution of Dr. Antoine. This brings us to the closure of this extended discussion, but again, because of the importance, because of the national and regional importance of this discussion, we continued a little into extra time. So thank you very much, those who've joined the broadcast. Thank you, Q95, for sticking it out with us. Q95 has always been supportive of the movement, and thank you for tuning into this broadcast. Again, Dominica World, good morning. Thank you. Please stay safe, everyone. Those who can get vaccinated, get vaccinated. Those who cannot get vaccinated, get regularly tested. Together, we can push through on this COVID, and we can defeat COVID. Just like how we've gone and we've rose above the occasion when we came from Hurricane Maria. I think we can come and rise above the occasion now. So thank you very much, and do join us again on Thursday. We're going to be on Thursday again, same place. Same host, different context. Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone.